The most dangerous thing in your life right now is not the difficult thing you are facing. It is the difficult thing you successfully avoided last month, and the month before, and the year before that. Every time you stepped around the hard thing, you were not protecting yourself. You were making the next hard thing worse, and the version of you that will eventually have no choice but to face something difficult will be weaker than the version that had the choice. You have been getting softer and calling it recovery. You went through a period where you pushed hard. Training, pressure, long hours, difficult conversations. It was uncomfortable and you got through it. Then you built a life that reduced that discomfort as much as possible. You optimized for less friction, less physical demand. Fewer situations where you might fail in front of someone. You called it balance. You told yourself you had earned a more comfortable operating environment. And for a while, nothing seemed wrong. No obvious cost. The absence of difficulty felt like stability. You did not notice that the capacity you built in the harder period was quietly draining away because nothing was asking it to remain. Your tolerance for discomfort dropped, not dramatically, gradually. The threshold at which a situation feels overwhelming crept downward toward you. And now things that would not have registered 3 years ago feel like genuine obstacles, not because your circumstances got harder, because you got less capable of handling them. That is not a personality flaw, it is a biological process, and it has a name. The concept is this: the body and the mind maintain only what they use. Stress that is controlled, applied in doses you can recover from, does not damage you. It signals the system that it needs to stay ready. Removing that signal does not produce rest. It produces withdrawal of the capacity that signal was maintaining. Think of it like a muscle you stopped using. Not injured, not abused, just not used. After enough time, it is smaller and weaker than it was. Not because anything went wrong, but because the body stopped funding something it had no reason to maintain. The hard thing you keep avoiding is the signal your system needs to stay capable. Not the catastrophic hard thing. Not maximum stress with no recovery. The controlled, regular, slightly uncomfortable challenge that tells your body and your nervous system and your capacity for difficult thought that they are still needed. Without that signal, the capacity recedes. Quietly, without announcement. And by the time you notice, the retreat has been going on for longer than you realize. In 1954, a Hungarian-Canadian physician named Hans Selye had been studying stress responses in animals and humans for nearly 2 decades. His experiments showed a pattern that ran counter to what medical consensus at the time assumed. The prevailing view was that stress was harmful by definition, and that reducing it was always the right objective. Selye's data showed something more specific. Animals and humans exposed to moderate repeated stressors and given adequate recovery time developed stronger physiological responses to challenge. Their immune function improved. Their cardiovascular resilience increased. Their hormonal regulation became more precise. The animals that were protected from all stress showed the opposite pattern. Their adaptive systems weakened. When a genuine stressor eventually arrived, the protected animals responded worse than the ones who had been regularly and moderately challenged. Selye named this the general adaptation syndrome. The idea that stress, within a certain range, is the mechanism that builds the very capacity to handle stress. His work was largely dismissed by the medical establishment for years because it contradicted the intuitive belief that protection produces strength. The intuition was wrong. The mechanism was the opposite of what everyone assumed. The pattern goes further back than Selye's lab. The Roman legions of the late Republic trained under a practice called armatura. Soldiers drilled with weapons made of wood but weighted to be heavier than their actual combat weapons. The deliberate addition of difficulty in training made the real tools feel lighter and faster in the field. The Roman military commanders who designed this system were not applying stress theory. They were applying an observation that had been confirmed in battle across generations. Difficulty applied in training produced excess capacity for the real conditions. The same pattern appears in bone density research on endurance athletes who stop training, in studies of pilots who lose instrument currency when they fly only in clear conditions, and in the documented cognitive decline in populations whose daily demands drop sharply. The body does not maintain what it is not asked to use. You have been protecting yourself from the signal that keeps you capable. And the protection feels indistinguishable from wisdom because it arrives dressed as rest. You stopped the morning runs, not because you got injured, because they were uncomfortable and you decided the discomfort was optional. You stopped having the difficult conversation with the person in your life who needs to hear something from you, not because the timing was wrong, because every timing feels wrong when the discomfort is yours to bear. You stopped taking on the project that would expose your limits. You took the one you already knew how to do. You are not managing your energy. You are spending it down without depositing anything back. The avoidance that feels like conservation is the withdrawal of the signal that tells your system to stay ready. Each thing you step around makes the next thing slightly harder to face. The threshold moves, not in your favor. The person around you who seems capable of handling difficulty without visible effort is not wired differently. They are carrying a different history of accumulated exposure. They met the hard thing regularly enough that it stopped feeling exceptional. The principle is this: seek the controlled dose of the thing you are avoiding before the uncontrolled version arrives and finds you unprepared, not maximum difficulty, not suffering for its own sake. The dose matters. A muscle trained beyond its current capacity with adequate recovery grows stronger. A muscle trained beyond recovery capacity breaks down. The goal is the regular, slightly uncomfortable challenge that sits just outside your current easy zone and pulls the threshold forward rather than letting it retreat toward you. In practice, this means doing the hard thing on a schedule rather than waiting until you feel ready. You will not feel ready. The feeling of readiness is produced by doing the thing, not by preparing to do it. The person who waits until running feels comfortable before running does not run. The discomfort is not a signal that you are not ready. It is a signal that the work is happening. What you give up is the belief that comfort is the goal. Comfort is not the goal. Comfort is the reward you take after the work, and only for long enough to allow recovery. Treating comfort as the permanent destination is the mechanism by which capacity recedes. What you get in return is not pain. It is the shrinking of the distance between who you are on your best day and who you are when something unexpected arrives. The capable version of you is not a different person. It is the same person who kept meeting the hard thing until the hard thing stopped being exceptional. You have been waiting for a sign that the difficult thing is worth doing. The fact that you keep avoiding it is the sign. The thing you have been avoiding for months is not harder than you can handle. It is harder than the version of you that has spent months avoiding it. Those are not the same thing. Facing it now in a controlled way, on your terms, produces a different person than facing it later when you have no choice. The later version is not more ready, it is less. The avoidance is the problem, not the thing.